All right. Light and love, peace and blessings to the family. Um, if you haven't already, I'm gonna start saying go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Um, that way, the viewers can get up, my channel can start growing, and we can get started like that. If you appreciate this information, I definitely appreciate everybody that all the new brothers and sisters that's been checking out my videos. Um, so as some of you know, my name is Cosmic Sankofa. Um, and I do the lately I've been over on Sinetta TV having discussions, right? So last night I had a discussion with Vocab Malone. Now, honestly, tell you the truth, I was hesitant to get up there and speak. I'm always hesitant to get up there and speak, because to me, the brothers and sisters that are on that channel are powerhouses of information. And you do have to be able to hold your own on that stage. And then the interesting thing is, however, I've been, whenever for the last past couple of years, when they've mentioned something, I've went and read about it. And then I've gone ahead and read, like, I read a lot of dissertations, to tell you the truth. I read a lot of dissertations. I read the books and I read dissertations. As a matter of fact, tonight I'm going to share with you one of the dissertations where I got the information from and when I had a discussion with Vocab last night on the channel, right? But this is something I put together this morning just to kind of get it out there, so hopefully it's informative and just to kind of give you any, if you were watching last night's show, just to give you the foundation of where my questions came from, right? So let me get into it, right? Jacob Berman versus Vocab Malone, my thoughts. All right. Now, when I was talking with Vocab Malone or just even listening to his discussion, I could tell that these three things, and I'm gonna discuss these three things. His theology heavily influenced by, popular orthodoxy, which isn't surprising because that's everybody. That's everybody. The Catholic Church, they were no joke in setting themselves up as the authority. And so like it shouldn't surprise me. It kind of did, but it shouldn't. So that's my fault for being surprised by that. But it is what it is, right? Also, Liz talking to him, I could tell he had little to no knowledge of the or I couldn't tell that he had knowledge about the early Gnostic schisms that occurred, and how they influenced, how important and pivotal they were to the development of the tenets of the faith, even in reference to, like I said earlier, the development of Islam. I'm gonna show a portion of that tonight, not even a portion, a part, and a piece. It's not even a part, it's a piece of a part of a portion. There we go, a piece of a part of a portion of how this quite possibly influenced Islam, right? And then I'm gonna go right into the Coptic Gospel of Peter, when I discuss that and the reasons why. And I'm gonna show you why it's important, right? All right. So when I was talking to him and I pointed out there were other Christianities that Paul was going up against, right? It seems like he avoided those questions entirely. And I really couldn't get into it, because I know Sinetta was trying to push people along and get, his show going. So I really wasn't trying to push that conversation, but I could tell as he was talking, he wasn't answering my question. That's why when I went in on the second time, I was like, you didn't answer my question, right? So, but he did kind of he tuned in to the Gnostic portion of it. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. That he zoned in on something, but he zoned in on something he could grasp because he hadn't really thought of that before. And I get that. You know what I'm saying? Because, I read I went ahead and read I read the New Testament for the most part, right? I got to go through the Gospel of John. But I read, the synoptic gospels and I read the letters of Paul. I went through the letters of Paul maybe twice, three times. And I picked these out. I picked these out. So I was looking for him. If he didn't know him, I get it. He just didn't know him. I didn't have time to go through where they were and how they were Ebionite. I didn't finish the video. Later on because I see they were on 2 more hours after I got off, and I'll finish that this morning. I'll look and see, what they were talking about. But he just didn't understand at that time, and he kept trying to say that the Ebionites were. I saw a part of it, and he kept trying to say the Ebionites were a later theology. He didn't understand the question. That was interesting. He didn't understand the question because the beginning of Christianity started with Paul for him. And he still can't comprehend the beginning of Christianity doesn't start with Paul. Pauline Christianity starts with Paul. Christianity itself, the Hellenistic Judaism, that's why I call it Hellenistic Judaism. So he didn't understand the questions. He didn't get it, you know. And so I got that in my conversation with him, right? You could also tell he had little to no knowledge of the early Gnostic schisms, right? I can't verify that. I can go back through and look through the video, but I think that he Googles information and reads it like it's proving a point. Like who does it? Well, I guess people he read the information has and tries to prove a point on the spot. Like he didn't have prior knowledge about a topic or about something and then expounded upon that knowledge instead of just reading it on the spot, learning it, and then coming to conclusions based upon your current reading of the information. I was looking at him like, okay, bro, well that Yamaguchi writer, he's one of the he's a writer who I forget the first name, but I know it was Yamaguchi that he mentioned. And he does write about Gnosticism. He's, any of us that study the impact and influence of Gnosticism on early Christianity, that's one of the names that we're going to come across. But as he was reading, I was like, you just kind of Googled that, it seemed like. He has knowledge in certain fields, but he doesn't have much knowledge on this, right? And then he was going hard against the pseudo Clementines, right? But the pseudo Clementines prove that there was earlier their apologetics. It's an apologetics against the Pauline Orthodox Christianity that was in vogue at the time, that was rising in power, that had power at the time. It's an apologetic literature, right? And so I now and see I got that from this work. This is a dissertation. You can just type in this if you want to know what I'm talking about. Type in this title and with the at the end type in PDF. Simon Magus and Marcion, Two Figures of Paul, PDF. It's a dissertation written, um, a little while ago. I didn't even put the person's name when I anyway, that's what you type in for you to get this information. And they go through the pseudo Clementines, which are also called the recognitions and whatnot, and they talk about how in early traditions they confuse Simon Magus for Paul. And then they talk about Marshawn. I mean, I had intended on doing a presentation on that. Sometimes it just takes a while to put stuff together. And I have to learn to get a little bit more I have to learn to be faster in putting these presentations together. But then also I need to call this channel the ever expanding rabbit hole. That's what it really seems to be. It's like the further and further you delve into this knowledge and this information, it's just like a deeper rabbit hole that you're jumping through. Um, and it's really kind of irritating because there's so much information to learn about a topic and a subject. The world is vast. The world is vast. Anyway, this is where the argument comes from, right? And so they Simon here is portrayed as like a Paul like figure. This is why Nepal Shada, she had said, and they called Paul Simon. And see, Vocab Malone, because he really hadn't read the pseudo Clementines. He didn't know what she was talking about. So, he's like, I pulled up the PDF, let's go to your section. He's not understanding. I already have a little knowledge on this because I read this dissertation. So, so what they're confusing the in the pseudo Clementine homilies, right? What the author is showing is that within the Ebionite tradition, there is a recognition or a blending of the Pauline story of him confronting the leaders of the Ebionite, Jewish Torah observant faith, and a kind of a mixing of Paul and Simon's stories, right? So when you read the dissertation, or if you come and check out, and I might do this I might do this the next couple of days because I have some time. Um, Check out the presentation I do on this topic. You'll see how these traditions get conflated. You know what I'm saying? But so that's where it goes. That's there is that, right? And then the last part, because this is just meant to be a really quick overview, right? I talked about the Coptic Gospel of Peter, right? So the Coptic Gospel of Peter, I made that connection for them because the Coptic Gospel of Peter and the Pseudo-Clementine homilies, they're both apologetics against the dominant church. Right now, the Coptic Gospel of Peter is earlier on there. I said 100 to 150. I was off on that on as far as the dominant dating is concerned, but I actually honestly think all of these gospels are second century texts. And then the funny thing is, like, I sometimes think I'm the only one who has these views, and then when I go out there and I go and really research it, I see other people have had these thoughts as well. So it is what it is. But I think I read some of the early. I was when I was going through the New Testament, reading the Pauline letters, reading the pastoral epistles, and then reading First and Second Peter and First and Second, Third John. I was like, these things all sound the same. Like the Christology that they're discussing and how they present themselves. It's like the grammar, the syntax, it all sounds the same. The stories, because they don't tell any synoptic gospel stories. And I was like, these are all written around the same time, you know. And then reading the early church fathers, Clement of Rome, Papias, and Polycarp. I don't know Papias, you may be able to give me a, but definitely Polycarp. I was like, they have the same vibe, in how they're presenting their arguments. It has the same content, almost the same syntax and grammar. I'm like, and they all one of the things they all have in common is none of them tell any synoptic gospel stories. They try to say like the Clementines have like lines from different gospels. That's not evidence enough to me to say that there was a gospel tradition around at that time because these are fathers of the church. You're telling me, I'm going off on a tangent here, but you're trying to tell me that the fathers of the church, the leaders of the church at the time, don't know the synoptic gospel stories, are at the very least, well, not even, they don't write about them at all. It's like Paul talking and trying to convince people about Christ. They're not using the stories inside the synoptic gospels to convince people of their position when they're writing. That's odd because once the synoptic gospel stories are written, people are using their stories over and over and over and over and over again. right? But you don't have that tradition in the early church. And this is why I think the Gospels are second century texts, right? Now, there's other reasons, more well developed reasons. There's a Martian Lucian priority type of conversation, which is it leads into like my discussion too. Like Marcion had the actual first gospel, and then Mark copied Marcion, and then Luke and Matthew copied that Mark that copied Marcion's Luke. We'll get into that at another point, another time. Anyway, the Coptic Gospel of Peter is a text that arises within 100 years of that time, and that all of this stuff is going on, right? And so, and so, let's see here. You can go to earlychristianwritings.com and download, the PDF yourself and read it for yourself. But let's go ahead now. See, it seems to be a polemic or treatise against orthodoxy, the rising power of orthodoxy, right? And so they say here, for many will accept our teaching in the beginning, and they will turn from them again by the will of the Father of their error. And he's talking now, listen, he's talking about people who are in error because they have done what he wanted. And he revealed them in his judgment, the servants of the word. But those who became mingled with these shall become their prisoners, meaning the prisoners of the mind. They get caught up, since they are without perception or without knowledge and understanding. And the guileless, good, pure one they push to the worker of death, meaning Satan, and to the kingdom of those who praise Christ and restoration. And they will praise the men of the propagation of falsehood, right? So they're talking about now. This is how you can tell this is a polemic. This is an apologetic against another group, right? And we're gonna see what this group is, right? And they will cleave to the name of a dead man, thinking that they will become pure. They're this group's understanding of what it means to purify yourself in salvation is different than the people who now when they say they will cleave to the name of a dead man, they're making fun of them, right? And then they say they will become greatly defiled and they will fall into a name of error. So he downplays this information, but he's only doing that from a position of the winner, of aligning with the position of the winner, right? The Roman Catholic Church, right? Because they eliminated all these other Christianities that existed simultaneously with the rise of orthodoxy, right? But this right here was a document that would have been read by groups of Christians criticizing the Roman Catholic Church, because they say here, once again, they cleave to the name of a dead man. Later on in the document, let's go. Let's look a little further in the document, right? Later on, I'll just keep going through what I got. And some of them will blaspheme the truth and proclaim evil, right? And say evil things against each other. So how's their talking? Some will be named who will stand in the strength of the archons of a man and a naked woman who is manifold and subject to much suffering. And those who say these things will ask about dreams. And if they say that a dream came from a demon worthy of their era, then they shall be given perdition instead of corruption. So they're criticizing Paul right here, are those who follow the Pauline doctrine. Because they say that and those who say these things will ask about dreams, right? It was so weird. Like I don't even think Vocab was like listening to himself speak, because at one point, and see, this is man, we could have had a larger discussion, right? Because he said to me that from his study of the Gnostic text, they dealt with visions and dreams and secret knowledge that they couldn't tell, right? Didn't Paul have a vision about secret knowledge he couldn't tell? Right. I was like, is this dude really listening to himself speak? Like, no one took him to task on that. That's really weird. Like, Paul's literally said in his when he's describing his visionary experience that he got information that he can't talk about. Really though? Vocab is talking about visions from the Gnostics. Paul's having a vision. Paul isn't Pauline Christianity is Gnostic or Hellenistic. That's why I said it. It was Hellenistic. That was so weird. Just listen. And then he was like, these books are written in other people's names. The modern scholarship is saying that 7 of the Pauline letters are written by other people in Paul's name. I'm like, dude, like, really? Like, I'm just like, dang. That's the one thing about Christians. They can live and say contradictions and not see the contradictions that they're talking about. So this is vocab Malone. Like, I think Jacob Berman, if he comes correct, will wipe the floor with him because Jacob Berman, man, this dude, like, he looked like one of those dudes that just like has a photographic memory and he just talks from memory. That's and you all know what I'm talking about. Much respect to him for what he does, but you know what I'm talking about because he's like Jacob, like a Robert Price. He just retains hella information, and that's just how it goes. But I mean, I was like, this he's not really hearing himself in his contradictory statements. And it wasn't even 6 seconds, 6 minutes from initial conversation. That was weird. I was at that point, that's why I was like, I wanted to go in. Sonetta said I had to leave though, so it was like whatever. Right. Here's another one, right? This is another one. But many others who oppose the truth and are messengers of error will set up their error and their law against these pure thoughts of minds, as looking out from one perspective, thinking that good and evil are from one source. So even from this statement, we're looking at the Coptic Gospel of Peter, and we can see that this might be some sort of like dualistic perspective coming like from it might even be a Marcion gospel or written by a Marcionite because anyway, we can get into that, but they're saying here that they're in error because they think good and evil are both from one source, and they're saying they're from two different sources. Then they say they do business in my word, and they will propagate harsh faith. The race of immortal souls will go to it in vain until my parousia are my substance. For they shall come out of them if my forgiveness of their transgressions into which they fell through their adversaries, whose ransom I got from the slavery in which they were, to give them freedom, blah, blah, blah. So that was the main point of that, right? Um, to give them freedom that they may create an imitation remnant in the name of a dead man. Once again, here we go with that concept of a dead man, right? So this document, the Coptic Gospel of Peter, is ridiculing the people who praise somebody in the name of a dead man, right? That's what this document is doing. This portion of the document is doing here, right? And this is another good one, right? This is a good portion right here because it literally tells you almost to a degree who they're criticizing. But really what they're doing is they're criticizing other Christianities. If you really want to understand Christianity and you don't want to be just a follower of a sect, you've gotta get into you've got to get into understanding the early development of the Christian faith, right? And it's not, people dismiss Gnosticism as if though it was like some random understanding. It was not random. It was not a random understanding. It was pivotal to the development of the tenets of the current faith, right? Right. And still others of them who suffer think that they will perfect the wisdom of the brotherhood which really exists, which is a spiritual fellowship of those united in communion through the wedding of incorruptibility shall be revealed. The kindred race of the sisterhood will appear as an imitation. These are the ones who oppress their brothers, saying to them, see, so look, These are the ones who oppress their brothers, saying to them, through this our God has pity, since salvation comes to us through this. And what they're talking about is crucifixion. The people who are saying that Christ died on the cross and his sacrifice erased your sins, they're saying they oppress others. They have the power of the oppression. They're criticizing orthodoxy, right? What is coming to be what the rising Orthodox Catholic Church, who is getting the power of the state. Because where would they get this power from? I think that, and I really don't like this, but I believe that it is an imperial cult. I believe what we know as Christianity began, what we currently know as Christianity, the authorized version began as a Roman imperial cult, along with others. But a lot of evidence is pointing to that, and I can give up, my understanding on that later. But and there shall be those who are outside our number, who name themselves bishops and deacons. That's almost a dead giveaway on who they're talking about. Dead giveaway on who they're talking about. They're talking about the Catholic Church. Dead giveaway, you know. Now this is the when I was in my conversation and I was saying that Islam is a heresy, and that they, and see, the thing is, and I'm developing a presentation on that, and what I've decided to do is, instead of like hobble different reading different dissertations and books and hobbling something together, I'm just gonna report on what I read. And then when I make synthesizing understandings, just report that as well. Because stuff just takes a long time, you know. For me, it just takes a while to get through these documents. Anyway, when he has said those things, this is another part of the gospel, the Coptic gospel of Peter, clearly, okay? All right. When he had said those things, I saw him seemingly being seized by them. And I said, what do I see, O Lord, that it is you yourself whom they take, and that you are grasping me? Or who is this one glad and laughing on the tree? So he's talking about two people. This is the person, Peter, discussing that he's seeing this scene, right? He's seeing this vision, like Vocab was talking about. He's seeing this vision, and somebody is grabbing the body of Jesus. But then he says he sees somebody laughing in the tree, and that it is someone else whose feet and hands they are striking, who's being crucified, right? That's what he's saying, right? And then it's saying, Jesus said to me, he whom you saw on the tree glad and laughing, this is the living Jesus, right? So this is how it's talking about the docetism and the docetic faith. But this one into whose hands and feet they drive the nails is the fleshly body, the avatar, which is the substitute being put to shame. This is why they are criticizing that this is why earlier in the document they say that they create an imitation remnant in the name of a dead man, the body there for whoever wrote, or whatever community of Christians wrote the Coptic gospel. This is how they understand Jesus, right? The living Jesus was a spirit that took over the fleshly part of the body. So this seems maybe you have some adoptionism going on here. And adoptionism is the understanding that through adherence to spiritual discipline and faith, you can become Christ-like, and the Christ spirit comes into you. It's kind of like Paul's theology. It might even be a Marcionite who wrote this gospel. That's what it sounds like to me, because Marcion had this understanding of two different gods. All right, here it goes. Be strong, for you are the one to whom these mysteries have been given. This is Jesus talking to Peter. To know them through revelation, that he whom they crucified is the firstborn, and the home of demons. Demons reside in the body, and the stony vessel in which they dwell, of Elohim, of the cross, which is under the law, right? This is like Christ has come to, get rid of the law, or whatever that whole conversation is, right? But he who stands near him is the living Savior, right? That which cannot be killed. The first in him, whom they seized and released, who stands joyfully looking at those who did him violence while they are divided among themselves. Therefore, he laughs at their lack of perception, knowing that they are born blind. So then the one susceptible to suffering shall come, since the body is the substitute. But what they released was my incorporeal body. But I am the intellectual spirit filled with radiant light. Basically saying they can't touch the divine essence, the God of the universe. That what they killed was a vessel, or it seemed as if though they killed him. Listen to how this is being crafted. It seemed as if though they killed him. Now let's look at something else here, right? I had said that Islam is a heresy. This is in Surah 4, verse 157 to 158, right? Not exactly the same, but something very similar. It says, that they said in boast, we killed Christ Jesus, the son of Mary, the messenger of Allah, but they killed him not nor crucified him, but so it was made to appear to them. And those who differ therein are full of doubts, with no certain knowledge, but only conjecture to follow, for of the surety they killed him not. So here they're saying that Allah intervened and gave them the appearance of killing Jesus, right? If you don't know the Gnostic texts, then that would, in your Islamic, and you're like, wow, that's deep knowledge. Where did that come from? You got to understand, there were earlier traditions that say that it was made to seem as if though they killed Jesus. And these earlier traditions criticized those who thought that they had killed Jesus. And they say they worship the name of a dead man. So, okay, I say all that to say this. Jacob Berman knows all this stuff, right? Like he knows it like a computer. And Vocab Malone does not. So in that discussion, now Jacob says he doesn't debate. As long as he just comes with his information, he should wipe Vocab up. Vocab's going to respond. You know, apologetics, to him, it seems like apologetics is about responding, responding to certain points. But he doesn't know enough. And he definitely is not going to know enough by tonight, because it takes more than 24 hours to study and get this in, and synthesize this information. So that's it. Light, love, peace, and blessings. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button. Let's see if I can grow. Light, love, peace, and blessings. Let me go ahead and do what I do.